Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Well. Good evening, everybody. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Today is Tuesday, May 30th, 2023. Our guest tonight, Pete Kelsey, is with us, part of the team there at Skinwalker Ranch. We've got a lot of things we are going to be covering tonight about reality modeling at the ranch, including drones, LiDAR, mapping, and all the strange goings-on up there at Skinwalker Ranch. Pete has spent over 25 years in the AEC, architecture, engineering, and construction industry. By the way, Pete left a big chunk of his bio out, I found out earlier this evening, but I don't know if we'll be talking much about that. But that's specializing in civil engineering, land surveying, and remote sensing technology. He has led strategic projects all over the world, documenting historic, cultural, archaeological sites and artifacts, including the moai of Easter Island and the USS Arizona, using reality capture digital twin technology. Tonight, we are going to be discussing Skinwalker Ranch. His links are below over on our website and throughout social media. I want to get straight to it and welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Pete Kelsey. Pete.
Hey, Jimmy. Good to see you.
It's a small world, my man. It's a small world. Okay, let's do this first, Pete. I've got to get the first time guest disclaimer out of the way, which is this, Pete. It's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where that conversation starts. It's already started, and where it's gonna end. But we're gonna end as friends. There you go. Accept. Do you accept? You have to click.
I accept the challenge.
It's a small world, Pete. I'm not going to get into what we just talked about, but I will say this. He says it's a small world, but I wouldn't want to paint it. Wow. Say hello to PK. So was that your nickname back in the day? They called you?
No, my nickname back in the day was
not PK.
No.
Oh man. And it's great to finally have you on the show. And one of the things that we were discussing earlier, but life is a journey, right? And you can't predict anything. You go through it and it brings you to where you are today. And where you are today and what you are working on, that's a strange journey. And I kind of want to know how you got there, especially after the discussion that we just had a few minutes ago. My journey, I'm pretty public about it. But how did you wind up Team Skinwalker? That's were you always into this, or was that an accident?
It was an accident, actually. What's the short version of this? You mentioned I did some amazing work on Easter Island a long time ago. And I did a really quick bit in a doc film as part of that project. And one of the guys who was involved, probably in the production staff, called me many years later, and he was with a company called Prometheus. And he wanted to talk to me about the Curse of Oak Island. And we talked about that, and I explained what I did for a living and how I thought it could fit. And next thing I know, he handed me off to basically the staff at Prometheus behind the Skinwalker Ranch series, and um, it's been great ever since. So kind of as you say, one of those 90-degree unexpected turns in our journeys around the sun.
The the ideas, not only with a Skinwalker and some of the theories about what may be going on up there. Skinwalker isn't the only location. There's craziness that goes on all around the world. Did you pay attention to, say, I'll just pull some stuff out of the air, Stonehenge or Egypt? You mentioned Easter Island, but let's go further back than that. Did you have an interest in the paranormal or the supernatural or ET?
I honestly, I didn't. I didn't. I can't lie. It was it was within the first couple of days at Skinwalker Ranch that I went that my attitude began to change. Let's put it that way. I describe it as one of the more humbling couple of days in my life. Actually, it was. You run into things that you can't, quickly explain, and some people run away, from that. Some people run toward that. Um, I chose to run toward it and have been interested in it since.
Isn't it fascinating how so many can go through life and not ponder anything outside of their world, right? They just live life, and that's fine, but they don't ponder. And then once you experience something that doesn't fit, right, your world view, it can be a pretty dramatic and sometimes a very humbling experience in that the world isn't what it seems to be, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly, oftentimes called an epiphany. Now, I wouldn't, I wouldn't. That's not the right word for what's going on with me, but um, it has. Oh, I'll cut to the chase. I've said this before. I mean, the ranch has become my white whale. It's gone from, okay, I don't understand what's happening here any more than anybody else does. Um, what do you do? You're at that crossroad. What do you do? Well, for me, it was, hey, as long as I have an all access pass here, I would love to help, you know, and that's kind of what it's evolved into. I've been there a number of times in the last 3 years, and come back with some interesting results.
One of the things that I appreciate about now, I reviewed tonight. There isn't an episode, by the way. They're taking
Right.
a week off. So normally on Wednesdays, which is tomorrow, I do a review with Christina Gomez, and we watch the show. Tonight we can't do that, so I'm taking tomorrow off. But the one takeaway that I do have, and I've got a lot of takeaways about Skinwalker, but the one takeaway is Brandon Fugel and his resources and his ability to fund, right, to get the capital needed to go and do some serious research. And just imagine what we would find out if we had that same kind of resource access to other sites around the world, right?
Oh, of course. He's he's the driving force behind the whole thing, and it's not just because of his checkbook. It's well, anybody knows this. He wears it on his sleeve. This is a passionate guy who is committed financially emotionally, professionally, to try to get some answers, right? To make some sense out of why this place is what it is and has been for, it seems like centuries.
Yeah, centuries, if not thousands of years.
Right.
Would anything, okay, Pete, be straight with me.
Hmm.
Would anything surprise you now? I mean, are you at the point now where, well, okay, it's Skinwalker? Would anything surprise you about Skinwalker Ranch?
Ooh. Well, sure, but um, my what I would call my surprises that happen, it's sort of more from, okay, that was what was that? That was odd. To is this an R-rated program, by the way?
I tend to not use foul language,
Okay.
but 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 you're Pete Kelsey, and apparently we're old friends. So
Well, let's just say it has evolved into um,
what?
long, creative, profane strings of, what the
Right.
bleepity bleep bleep is going on here. And that's why I, describe it as my white whale, because now it's, and sadly that kind of makes me Ahab, and I accept that. It's, and and what I was just saying about Brandon, I mean, that sort of enthusiasm is infectious, right? Which I love. In fact, I told him a year ago. I don't even remember. It doesn't matter. I was telling him, it's like, having been around the guys now for a while, and we were just sort of chatting about it. I said, this reminds me of being in a really good band. And he's a hell of a musician, by the way. And
Brandon's a musician.
yeah, yeah. And he was in a band that was chasing record deals back in the day. I'm not making this up.
What does he play? Don't tell me he was the singer.
Keyboardist.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, things are getting really strange. Things are.
So, when I made a band reference, he's like, wow, that's interesting. I'm like, yeah, man, when I was playing, I wanted to play with people who were better than me, right? Who would
Right.
push me and make me a better player. And the vibe, the chemistry of being in a band, and the humor and the highs and the lows and all that stuff. It's That's what working with these guys feels like to me to this day. And I'm not, and this is important. I'm a guest. Every once in a while I get a call and I get to come sit in with these guys, and they're amazing, and I'm grateful that they'll have me. But I am not in the band.
So, would you classify? I'm going to get into specifics about Skinwalker. We're going to be doing that
Yeah.
for the rest of the show. But would you classify yourself and take this the wrong way? Okay, I want you to take this the wrong way. Would you classify yourself as a skeptic before Skinwalker?
Maybe. I guess it depends on your definition, right? Because I've when asked, some 30,000 foot view question like, Pete, do you think we're alone? My answer has been the same my adult life, which is, I sure hope not.
Right.
Right? It's somewhere between that, and because I've spent most of my career, or the second half of my career, working with engineers and that sort of scientific realm, that's had an effect on me as well. So that's the skeptical part. So I sort of exist in this fuzzy gray area between the two. Believe me, I'm one of the people when I'm working at the ranch or elsewhere on similar types of material, thinking, nothing would make me happier. Or maybe that's not the right word. Let me try to rephrase it another way. One of my favorite things in the world is disruptive science, right? Where some discovery or some thing happens that takes a narrative from "it's always been this" to "sorry, it's now that."
Well, isn't that well, okay? Well, that's what science is supposed to do,
Mhm.
right? And science is nothing but a series of corrections. If you go back and you look at science hundreds of years ago, and what was assumed to be this, as and you put it really well, has taken left and right turns. Science is nothing but a series of corrections. That's
I
all.
love that. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. And so, do you feel that science and I want to say the paranormal, let's just
Mhm.
call it the strange, right? Whatever that is,
Yeah.
but they are starting to collide now. Science today, some of the things and the ideas and the theories that are put forward by some very brilliant physicists and very smart minds is crazy talk. It's crazy talk. You know what I mean? Multi-world, parallel worlds, 11 dimensions, the multiverse, right? The time travel. That's just crazy talk. But they will say the numbers say it's so, right? So we have to, and that, but our community has been talking about this for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So it seems like something radical is about to happen.
Yeah, some kind of convergence, perhaps. Yeah, I love that. And like I said before, believe me, I'm at the front of the line saying, bring it, because I'm, I'm ready, right? It's, I'm reminded of something that happened on my first visit to the ranch, which is relevant to this, which is just in something we were shooting or whatever, a conversation. And I used the word believe in somehow. And Travis looked right at me and he said, "Yo, we don't use that word around here." Okay. And I just was like, whoa, well, okay, got it. I won't forget that. But he went on to say that, look, whatever is happening here, we have to, it's, it, we're after the facts. We're after the science. We need the community, the planet, humanity, whatever needs and wants answers. And the answers aren't going to come from confirmation bias. I know
Right.
this is true just because it's true. And I love that. And frankly, that's why I have been going back, is because he kicked my ass on day one. And I thought, I think I can get along with these folks because fits that fits really well because um, I'm just as hungry for answers as everybody else is that has plagued the human race since we were capable of thought, right?
Well, let's start there then. All right. What's what is that dome under the mesa? Now,
Oh,
and now, although that is a huge, broad, right? But to speculate, when you look at the mesa, and then you step back and you picture what has been described as, this structure. Maybe it's a ship. I don't know what it is, but there appears to be something there. What do you think that dome is?
I wish I knew. I mean, honestly, if I did know, of course, I've signed my life away for NDAs that are this high, but I don't know. I don't know. I can tell you that, and I could tell a number of stories about the tech that I brought out there and used in that particular area, and some of the things that I can't explain have happened, on more than one occasion with different sensors at different times. I mean, just strange, strange things.
If there is, if there is a dome structure
Mhm.
underneath the mesa, looking at the mesa itself, it would have to have been there for a very long time.
Yes.
My pragmatic way of looking at it is, if that is indeed the case, then the mesa has built itself up naturally over time on top of this structure, which we would be potentially talking about tens of millions of
Yes.
years or longer, right?
Yes. Yes. And see, and that's the part, because I tried to be a geologist once, so this conversation's right up my street. It's that makes me think of the anomaly in the GPR data that my friend Jan got up there, which is, he said it best. He was wide-eyed. He didn't. He was as I've come to say, he was another third-party expert who came on the property and got his ass skinwalkered.
Right. So
And he said it so well. He's like, that is anomalous. And that, does it warrant further investigation? Of course it does. Of course it does. So that, to me, with some of the other things that's been going on in and around the mesa and the triangle, obviously it's an area of focus. I think it's probably going to be for some time. But the dome and the mesa, well, I can't tell you much about it other than things you already know. They've tried drilling in there, what, 3 times? At least twice. And, the drill gets to a certain point and stops. Well, because I spent so much time in civil engineering and surveying, my mind went right to, well, where's the intersection from the drill from the top? Where does that meet the drill from the bottom, right? Where's that intersection? If bearings from each of those drill sites, and that interests me a lot.
Of course. And at the end of, I don't know if it was last week's episode or the week before, Thomas said, and I don't know Thomas, but sometimes he says the smartest things, right? Where you just go, what? Yeah, of course. So I don't know if it was last week's show or the week before, but Thomas said, why don't we drill from the top down?
He
Right?
sure did.
Right. And I was like, duh. Right? Okay. So why don't they drill from the top down? Or is that coming up later on this season?
Well, it's beyond my pay grade. But hey, I defer to Tom. He's right. Yeah, we should try to find that intersection
Because
point.
that's exactly what you're referring to. And it makes a lot of sense. Okay. Now, help me understand a couple of things. And I've tried to learn these things. So help me understand. Is the dome itself, if you're looking from the top down, is it circular or is it elliptical? Because the mesa looks elliptical. So is it the shape is the dome the shape of the mesa, or is the dome from top down circular?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not sure anybody knows. If they know, they're not telling me. The only thing that I remember about the mesa in terms of like geometry was something a friend of mine pointed out um, when we were, you know, I had generated all this really accurate three-dimensional data of the property to include the mesa, and I had a friend of mine, my good friend Dave from NVIDIA, was fooling around with some of their super advanced software, and all he happened to do was draw a circle in plan view, looking straight down on the mesa, and he drew a circle around it. And he was doing some other, calculus kind of things. And he went, "Wow, that's interesting." And I went, "What?" And he goes, "Look at look at the diameter of that circle." Because all he did was just trace the mesa. Because the face of the mesa is sort of half moon, semicircular shape, right? The circle he just drew completely randomly had a diameter of 5,280 feet, which is exactly 1 mile. Coincidence? Maybe,
Wow.
probably. But I thought wow, that's interesting. So to anybody on Google Earth, draw a circle, trace the mesa with a perfect circle, and see if you get a diameter of 1 mile. You probably will, or pretty darn close to it. Um, and that, beyond that, I defer to the things that I know, having been there. Um, I've lost 3 drones on that property. Okay. The only thing that I know confidently that I can say with pretty self-assured is there is undoubtedly some serious EMI going on that property, electromagnetic interference. Because if you watch the show and you know the history of the place, electronics do not behave. They just don't, not consistently. And electronics like I use that are dependent on half a dozen technologies, GPS and electric motors and radio control and all this kind of stuff. Um, you know, and specifically in and around that area, the triangle, the mesa. I mean, I consider myself lucky that most of my gear has come back intact. Not all of it, but most of it.
Um, uh, One of my moderators just popped this up, and I
Mhm.
know it's a basic question, but I'm going to put this here because we're going to be talking about LiDAR tonight.
Mhm.
Bill says, has ground penetrating radar been used on the property? The short answer is yes, it has. What's your experience with that? And when we talk about ground penetrating radar, is it LiDAR? Is LiDAR the blanket uh, technology, right? When we talk about ground penetrating radar.
They're actually kind of different. If I was to really generalize it, I would say LiDAR is laser based and used to model the ground from, in my
About
case, using drones. So you
okay,
get topography, you get a real super accurate 3D, 3-dimensional data of the ground. GPR, ground penetrating radar, is radar based, which is essentially radio based. So it sends radio signals into the ground, and the radio signals will get different returns based on what they encounter, right? Voids, different hardnesses of rocks, different layers of rock. I mean, all that kind of thing. So, in a general sense, LiDAR is above ground, GPR is underground. Uh,
perfect. Now,
yeah.
perfect. Will GPR, ground penetrating radar, when it gives a return, is there a way to determine what the material is? Metallic, rock, water.
Mm, I don't want to overstep my authority on GPR. We need my friend Jan here, who's worked on the ranch with GPR. Um, I'll cautiously say maybe. I want to say maybe, because I'm sure that anything metallic would get a, I mean, remarkably different signature than something non-metallic. But I'd have to have that confirmed, as would void, right? If there's something, if the mesa is hollow, which some people, a lot of people talk about that, what would that look like in the GPR? Well, and Jan being a smart, yeah, I mean, his PhD geophysicist, he knows his stuff. He was wide-eyed. I mean, gobsmacked, cameras rolling. He got skinwalkered, as I say, and he just fell back on that is anomalous, which I just love because what does that mean? That means Jan has never seen this before. That means he is not going to, venture a guess on camera. Um, and I'm smiling off camera, going, "Welcome to the ranch."
Yeah, exactly. And with your topography and LiDAR data collection of the ranch, what stands out for you, and what have you learned?
Number one thing is that GPS, the satellites. That's how they know your phone knows where it is. It makes everything work. GPS, it can be really problematic on that property. And I've never seen this anywhere else. And I've used GPS dependent sensors like LiDAR all over the world. Um, and what do I mean by this? I mean, you've seen it in the show. It's like a consistent anomaly. Our GPS based problems, for lack of a better word. And I mean all flavors of GPS. So whether it's my drones, all of a sudden they don't know where they are, or they think they're 2 miles underground, or they think they're 80 miles, to the east or west or north, to the helicopter, the H-130, the Brandon's helicopter that his brother Cameron flies. I mean, the helicopter's GPS. I mean, aviation grade GPS, which is critical for air traffic control, so everybody knows where everybody is. Same kind of thing. Oh, you're a mile from where you think you are, or you're underground, or you're 10,000 feet than you're higher than you think you are, to the really small GPS sensors that Eric Bard will put on my drones. He will put on other people's gear because he's a smart guy and he knows he's on the scent of this GPS problem. So he puts GPS trackers on everything, even things that have GPS. So there's a redundant system to look at, the thing is GPS versus its sensors GPS, and one might say everything's fine, and the other says you're in New Jersey. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but you get the point. It's forgive the long answer, but to me, the GPS problems or issues or anomalies, whatever the right word is really interesting. And if give me 30 seconds and I'll tell you why.
Continue.
As an old surveyor who was teaching me the ropes many years ago taught me, what really makes GPS work, and this is sort of fundamentally, any surveyors listening will lose their mind until they realize that it's true. What really makes GPS work is time,
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
meaning a really accurate clock. So, and the more accurate clock you have, the more precise your location can be determined on the ground. So, and this is a bit of my white whale theory, hypothesis, guess, is that because GPS is time based, sure wonder if there's something time related. It doesn't, the time doesn't behave the same on the ranch that it does everywhere else. And I can remember suggesting this, putting this in Travis's ear, and Travis, love Travis. He lives out loud. There's no inner voice. What you see is what you get. And he went like this. He went, wow. And that keeps coming up.
Well,
So,
GPS,
mhm,
we're going to stay right here for a second.
sure.
GPS is dependent on the calculations of known laws of physics
Yep.
today, in that a watch at my altitude where I am, I'm in the desert, right? I'm in the Mojave Desert, keeps a certain time. You go to the top of Mount Everest, and that same watch is going to be off by a little bit. Now it's a tiny number, right? It's a tiny number, but gravity affects that. Once you position GPS satellites out in space, now we are off, right? Now we're talking about real amounts of time. So it's frame drops, and there's other ways of combating this, but they have to offset those GPS satellites. Okay. And the difference is whether you are going to turn left into a building or turn left onto a street. That's the difference in that importance of that correction of time with GPS systems. And it is so dependable now that things are accurate within inches, right? And we know that we can drive our car. We're now, if anything went wrong, Pete, with GPS, the world's got a problem. And if there is something specifically going on with GPS at Skinwalker Ranch, then it would have to be, it would have to be time. And I think that you're spot on the money. Now, what anomaly, what thing in nature, right? I'm not going ET yet, but what thing in nature could cause time anomalies and time slips in a geographic location? What would cause that?
That is a question for the ages. Absolutely. What? Why? And this is why when I start going down this path, yeah, the tone in my voice changes and I get wide-eyed, and because it's the white whale. Yeah, it's that to me is one of the smoking guns. It's the thing because of what I do for a living. I'm carrying a bit of my own bias here because everything I do is location based. Everything. So admitting that, I still say, um, I it's it, you look for
I
you
mean,
look for you look for a repeatability, right?
right.
And
Could it
this
be
happens all the time.
could it be magnetic? Could it be caused by rocks or something like that? And if it could, wouldn't we be hearing about this from all over the world? It seems like, talk about repeatability, there would be issues with GPS in other cities around the world, and I don't hear about this.
No, and if there were, we certainly would. I mean,
Right. You can't drive in Tokyo, man. Right.
not to mention get on a commercial airliner and want to come back. It's
Uh,
it's it's the other bit of this is that, and this is where I really step out of my own expertise, which I'll admit again. This is where we need folks like Travis and Eric, who are bona fide physicists. But time, it has to do with the speed of light, the time that it takes the radio signals to get from the GPS satellites to my phone and back to figure out where I am. So time and the speed of light, now we're getting into Einstein and relativity. And, to your question about what could cause this, I have no idea. It's beyond me. But boy, has it sunk its hooks into me to try to help the guys in whatever way I can get to the bottom of it. But I think of what was his name? Colonel Alexander, right?
Mm-hmm.
Curious cat, man. And he didn't blink. I think it's in one of the early episodes in the series. When asked, so what's going on at Skinwalker Ranch? He doesn't blink. He looks right in the camera and he goes, "It's a portal."
It's a portal. Yeah. That I've always found that interesting. The geologist part of you, when they started to pull out those pieces of material that now it's been repeated on every episode since it happened. The same material used on the space shuttle. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay. Did you? What do you think? If that is not of nature, if that is not a naturally formed, then how did it get there, and what is it doing there? And I would think that this is a bigger deal than the show is. This is history changing stuff. What do you think that material is that they pulled out of the ground?
Forgive me.
Did you hold it?
No, I wasn't there for that bit. I wasn't on site, but when I watched the show and I saw that bit, honestly, my first thought was, "Oh, that's some kind of lining from the inside of the holding tank." But it wasn't. It wasn't. And because to your point, I mean, the materials that they had analyzed at University of Utah, I mean, these are seriously rare earths. And to your point, they're synthetic. They don't occur naturally. So yeah, it's another one of these questions where I wish I had an answer. I mean, if I did, I'd be in Stockholm in the audience watching the guys get their Nobel prizes. I don't know.
It's in the world of nature. Okay, so when we're talking about the ceramic tiles, the heat shields on the outside of the space shuttle, that's one of the biggest achievements of mankind, right? To develop that material for the outside of the space shuttle so it could fly, right? And re-enter Earth's atmosphere. It's a really big deal. Do ceramics like that form in nature? If you study geology a little bit, have you ever heard of this? Is it possible?
Not to my knowledge. No.
Right.
No, these are rare earths and it's synthetic. I mean, manufactured. So, what's the origin of that? It's another one of these incredibly nagging questions that a whole lot of people and more every day, want answers to, including me.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with that. With with the drilling for and you've been doing this for a long time. For a drill, I mean, we can drill through anything. Right? We made
Basically.
we can drill through anything. Drilling through stuff is not an issue. Right? It's really that simple. For a drill to come up on something with 8,000 pounds of pressure behind it and just sit and spin, with that high pitch, that sound that a drill makes when it's not getting anywhere. 30 minutes, 8,000 pounds of pressure and nothing happening. What's your best guess of what that drill bit is coming up against? Is it metal? Is it diamond? Is it something that a drill cannot possibly drill through? Which I find that hard to imagine, especially with 8,000 pounds of pressure. And that's not a small drill that they're using.
No. Well, I guess not to sound flippant about it, but what could it be? My reasonable brain, or what's left of it, something harder than the drill bit. Well, wow, because we're talking, I mean, this is Utah. There are all kinds of stratigraphic layers of all kinds of rock, right? To include some really hard metamorphic rocks, to include granite and schist and all kinds of things. So your question, what would stop an industrial drill like that in its tracks? I mean, something harder than the drill. So are there minerals harder than, carbide steel? Of course. You mentioned diamond. Are there metals harder than carbide? There must be. There must be some alloy that could stop this thing in its tracks. So it's again, it's one of these just tantalizing yet frustrating, humbling things that keep a lot of us hanging on. It's like, I need to know more about that. I need to go, and that's where that's where it can get frustrating, because and I'm not speaking for anybody but myself. That's where, having done a bit of television in my career, if there's one thing that's death to television producers, it's the same material over and over again, because people are going to change the channel. The problem with that is that doesn't really line up really well with a scientific investigation, which is repeatability. So if the drill stopped, why? Let's and coming up with an experiment, something to follow up on it that satisfies television and the scientists. That's I don't know how those guys do it. I don't.
Well, I'm surprised Thomas didn't jump in and go, okay, let's use a diamond tip drill bit.
He probably did.
He probably did. He probably did, because that's where I was going. One of the things, when it stopped, I was like, change the drill bit then. Right. Let's go with what's harder than, and I know that there's diamond tip drill bits, of course. Right.
Yes.
So maybe we'll see that in a future episode, but it seems like the next logical step with that. Before we head to a break, just put on your fantasy cap for a second. Would it surprise you if that was a flying saucer under that mesa that's covered in millions of years of dirt and rock?
Would it surprise me? I'd soil myself. Of course I would.
Well, I mean, at this point, what could it be? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's for me, it's like the natural next step here. It's almost like Occam's razor. It's like the simplest answer. I think it's the answer that wouldn't surprise everybody.
I'm with you. I think it's a smoking gun, the Mesa.
Now,
no doubt about it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Have you seen evidence of a vortex, of a portal? Oh, I like the dramatic pause. Remember, this this is radio, by the way. So,
oh God. Well, my first thought was, does anybody know what a portal looks like, or a vortex? I have seen UAPs, more than one, when I've been on the property.
Tell me about the first time, and what did you see?
The first time was broad daylight, and I had this was on my first visit. I had a drone up in the air, and I was flying a mapping mission of the property. Eric was with me, and I've got one eye on the drone, and I've got one eye on the controller, and one eye on the real time feed on a laptop. Anyway, I'm busy, and there's something bright in the sky, and I thought, well, wow, look at that. There's something bright in the sky.
Can I jump in? Was
Yeah.
that the first time in your life that you have seen a UAP? Okay, all right, just for transparency. Okay, so
Sure.
that's a life-changing moment, and
It
possibly
was
time.
it
Yeah,
was it was
yeah.
pretty cool. I gotta tell you, it was not. I wasn't scared. I wasn't, freaked out. It was just, this is great because I can see it. And
Did it have a
um,
shape? Did it have a shape?
no, it was like, I would describe it as the brightest star in the sky at night, but it was broad daylight. And I'm not the dullest tool in the shed. I thought probably a glint off a windscreen of a commercial aircraft, but it didn't move. It was stationary. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. And then, I'm not making this up, the drone stopped responding to my controls, went into an orbit, and I'm freaking out because this thing is really expensive. And I have no control over this thing. And
Right.
it starts orbiting, and I can't do anything. And Eric tells this much better than I do because I'm screaming obscenities at the sky. And there's literally nothing I can do until the batteries run out in the drone and it falls out of the sky. Crazy.
And how long was the UAP there? Did you see it coming? Did it leave?
I don't remember because, once I know I can't control my drone, I'm looking out for people's safety and my expensive gear. And so I don't know. I forgot about the UAP, frankly, but it was there. And I thought, that's really something. And the plot thickens because the data from that, so the drone was damaged. I managed to fix it, but the data from the drone showed a really interesting anomaly. What should have been nice flat topography had this like 30-degree bend in it. And I remember talking to the vendor, who made the drone. I'm like, what? What could cause this? And their best guess, they didn't know, but their best guess was that looks like, loss of GPS. And I went, oh.
Huh. Huh. I just looking at the clock. I'll share this with you. I was filming an episode for my TV series for History Channel, A&E, and we're out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on this boat research vessel, and we had a UAV, right? Okay, and this thing was certified with sonar to 2,000 feet. Okay, 2,000 feet. That it wasn't the deepest thing that in the world, but
That's deep.
but 2,000 feet, right? Okay, all right. So, and we've got this crane, and we got this thing and machine, and we're dropping this thing in the water, and it had cameras on it and lights and sonar. Okay, all right, a pretty sophisticated looking piece of gear, I might add. Pretty cool. Every time it got to a certain depth, when we needed it to work, the sonar crapped. and it's certified to, and it was, I think it was 100 feet. Now it's certified at 2,000 feet, right? And to lift this thing back out of the water 100 feet to look at it, it takes a couple hours, right? You just don't crank this thing up and, take it out. And as soon as it got to like 50 feet, sonar would turn on. All right. And we checking cables, and we have 50 people on this boat. Everybody's an expert and everybody's looking at this. It's fine. Put it back in the water. It's heading down. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Boom, 100 feet, right? Sonar's out. And it was one of the most frustrating things to go through, where something is so dependable, especially like you're referring to with your drone. It's dependable. You use it all the time. You know what's up. Yeah. And electronics just don't fail. Like the rocket engines that they're always firing there at Skinwalker, right? Those are commercial grade. You can buy at a hobby shop, right? There's no issues with those. And it's like every other one that they try to fire seems to crap out. And so I'm wondering if that 1.6, right, megahertz, or that signal that keeps popping up, is that part of this interference that is happening there with the gear. By the way, we never figured out the sonar problem. We didn't 16 hours at sea and never did figure that thing out. And talked to the technician later. No, man, everything's fine, man. I just used it at 500 feet and no, it's no problem. But no, not with us, over the specific area that we were trying to investigate.
There you go.
What's up with this 1.6 though?
Oh God, you're going to kill me. This is going to turn into a drinking game. Every time Kelsey says, I have no idea, everybody has to take a drink. I don't know. It's not, I wish I did. Like GPS, it appears to be something that is, dare I say, consistent. I mean, it keeps showing up, right?
Right.
That's interesting from an investigative point of view. So is that something that they're paying attention to? Well, obviously, of course they are. What do I think it is? Radio is beyond me. But
do you think it's coming from the mesa, from the dome?
Sure feels like it, doesn't it? Because a signal has to have a source. I know that much about radio. There's transmission and receiving, right? It has to have an origin point. So Mesa, why not? You have to consider all possibilities.
Well, we need to let's take our break, and when we come back, we'll go right back to portals and UAPs where we're leaving off now. Don't think I'm just going to let Pete get off that easy. It's not going to happen. Not tonight. Pete Kelsey is our guest. Stay right there. This is Fade to Black. And Pete, just to remind you, I had brought up portals. You brought up UAPs. And so that's where we were, and that's where we're going to come back right after this short break. Stay with us. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. Join us November 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2023 as Disclosure Fest Foundation and Fade to Black Radio presents Stairway to the Stars, a Human Origins Science and Technology Expo, live at the Luxor Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. With live talks, lectures, and workshops by world-acclaimed researchers and authors. This is Jimmy Church, by the way, and I'll be your host all weekend long, featuring topics like human origins, ancient technologies, indigenous indigenous teachings, workshops, a mass meditation, yoga and sound healing, music, and so much more. Don't miss our intimate sky watch and meteor shower over the infamous Area 51 airspace in Rachel, Nevada, with special surprise celebrity hosts guiding us through the night. Also introducing our Disclosure Fest VR Starship area with dozens of rides. You've got to check it out. This event will sell out. For more information and tickets, please visit disclosurefest.org. This is Jimmy Church, and I want to introduce you to LifeWaves X39 Stem Cell Activation Patch, which has totally transformed my health, my sleep, brain, and my eyes. I no longer need reading glasses. X39 is a true breakthrough in regenerative science. Using light, X39's patented age reversal technology is clinically proven to signal the activation of younger stem cells, accelerating the body's natural healing process. X39 promotes restoration and rejuvenation, bringing the life-changing benefits that I've experienced. By naturally elevating a master signaling peptide in the body, X39 boosts vitality, health and wellness, and resets 4,000 genes to a younger, healthier state. It's one patch, once a day, and you can turn back time with X39. Just go to healingworksnow.com. That's works with an X. healingworksnow.com.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person, and guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com, and the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's gonna be a night to remember. You don't wanna forget this. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I wanna see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black X39. I've got it right here in the studio. First thing I do every day is put on my patch. X39. The links are below. I've got them up in the chat. This segment of the show is brought to you by Accidental Truth. It is the new documentary directed by Ron James. It is streaming on all platforms. The links for it are below, and of course over on our website. And again, I'm going to say it because I'm proud. My 8 seconds in this film are incredible. Go check out Accidental Truth today. Our guest tonight is Pete Kelsey, and we're talking about Skinwalker Ranch. And Pete, right before the break, I asked you about portals. And interestingly enough, you said, well, that first day I saw a UAP, and daytime UAPs, daytime UFOs, that's the Holy Grail. At night, it can be anything, right? You can't see it. But during the day, you got to see your first UAP. It's a UFO, Pete. Nobody calls them UAPs anymore. UFO. But it was because I was asking you about portals. What's the connection here?
I wish I knew. I I sure hope there's a connection. I suppose it would be slightly disingenuous for me to say anything other than that. I sure hope there is. It's just I'm in this weird spot, right? You know that saying, "Don't kill the messenger." I'm the messenger. I show up and I generate all kinds of data and hand it to people a lot smarter than I am to like tell me what's going on. I can guess with the best of them. But
But what was the? I guess I asked the question. I framed it wrong.
okay.
I brought up portals. You brought up UAP.
Hmm.
So, what happened with the portal that you brought up? Was there evidence of portal action going on when the UAP showed up?
Not that I remember. It's more as I recount these things, it's more a collective. It's of experiences. It's more, okay, wow, I saw a UAP, then I lost a really expensive drone. Then the data in that drone was unexplainably strange. I mean, a 30-degree bend in the data, and the vendor couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain it. I hadn't seen it before. So all that, and by the way, all of this gets logged when you're on the property. And I mean, they log everything. If anything happens, tell us. It gets written down. That happens religiously. And so as I kept going, and I will get to your question. So from a collective standpoint, then I think Colonel Alexander, he didn't blink. Oh, it's a portal. That's what's going on here. Well, what's a portal? I don't. Portal has to do with at least my limited understanding is, which is from all of science fiction I've watched and read in my life, has to do with a way to get from one place to the other over such vast distances that the only way to do it is to be able to manipulate time. Sorry. So time enters my head. Well, then again, over time, I start seeing that GPS behaves badly all the time. And not just with me, with just about everybody who brings GPS related equipment onto the property. Okay. What makes GPS work? Time. Time. Portals. This happens a lot at the Mesa. Is there something in the Mesa? Is there something unique about the Mesa? The 1.6 gigahertz. Could this all be related? Man, I hope so. I sure hope so. And selfishly, would I like to have my fingerprints on a small bit of that discovery? You're damn right I would. You're damn right I would.
One of I keep referring to like the latest episode, but it was a couple of episodes ago. But this has happened a lot on the series. Are strange lights, orbs, whatever you want to call them, at night appearing in different sections of the ranch? Have you seen any of the light phenomena there for yourself?
We saw. Let me make sure I'm not going to violate an NDA. Yeah, this aired when we did the drone swarm experiments over 2 nights, by the way. One night was in the East Field, and the other night was at the Triangle. There was a UAP, or sorry, UFO. There was a UFO, bright light in the sky, and this happened when we were filming, and I'm pretty sure it's in the episode. That's so. Have I seen an orb on the ground, or like I've heard about other people have seen? I have not. But and I want to say that happens out at HS2 Homestead 2.
Mhm.
My first experience, I think it was also my first visit there. I put a handheld LiDAR scanner in Eric Bard's hand, and he went in and scanned the exterior and the interior of Homestead 2. but there was one of the rooms in this building didn't get scanned. That was, and the cameras are rolling, and they're like, cameras. So, Pete, what do you think? I have no idea. Have you ever seen this before? No, I haven't. Can you explain it? No, I can't. This is a laser-based system. I can see the solid walls in this room, and the laser's getting no return from this room. So it just keeps happening, and it keeps drawing me back. The best I could do would be to guess. And what I worry about guessing is that it puts crap out there into the ether that people latch onto and accept as truth. And I can't do that. There are so many serious people who care about this work. Yourself, your audience. I mean, people want these answers. So do I. And it just, there's a part of me that feels there's a bit of I'm a bit cagey when, I ask, well, what do you think? Well, I could guess with the best of them, but I don't want to pollute the hard work that's going on there by very serious people.
Why? I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, but it seems that you bring in a professional. It doesn't matter what the background is. It could be something like, the drill operator, right?
Yep.
The guy that's moving boulders, or the guy that's bringing in LiDAR and measuring with lasers, right? High technology. It doesn't matter. It seems the veterinarian that they're always bringing out to the ranch, right? It doesn't matter what the background is. If you show up at the ranch, you are going to experience something that you've never experienced before. It seems like that's the way it is across the board, that no matter what your background or whatever your expertise is, you're going to be exposed to something that is anomalous, is the only word to use.
Yeah, it's what you're describing. I've actually started like keeping sort of a score because it makes me feel less crazy, quite frankly, because as these things happen, you look for a reasonable explanation, and that's not always easy to come up with. So anyway, to your point, a third-party expert like myself comes on the property, professional, confident, has done what they do a million times in a million different places, and then things start to go wrong. And it happens over and over again to such an extent, like the scene. There was a scene we shot when Jan, who did the GPR, came in, and it's sort of the meet and greet scene, right? We drive up and we all shake hands and hello, and Jan asks some very obvious questions. So what's going on here and how can I help? And as the guys are explaining to him the stories of the ranch and what happens there, you're watching Jan just go, he's checking out, right? He's like, oh boy, how do I get out of here? This is not what I thought it was going to be. And I watched this happening to him, and I just jumped in and I said to him, and it didn't make the show, but I which is too bad, because I looked at him and I said, I've been in your shoes, man. I know exactly what you're feeling. I know you want to get out of here. I know you think we're all nuts. And you're a PhD geophysicist. You know your stuff. You're credentialed. You're thinking your career is over. You're never going to work again. No one's going to take you seriously. Blah, blah, all that stuff. I know what you're feeling. Just hang around and let's talk again in a couple of days. And oh my God, it happened to Jan. It happened to the drone swarm guys. Same thing. Hey, we've lost signal on 3, 4, 8. Now we've lost communication with all 200 drones. And I'm there watching it in the back off camera going,
Even you know who there's a lot of serious guys on the show, but you know who I think is the most serious dude that kind of scares the crap out of me?
ooh,
Fugel's brother, the pilot.
oh, Cameron,
Yeah, Cameron. He's a serious cat.
he is.
That dude's a serious cat. Every time he's in that helicopter, man. Every single time. Right. And that's a nice helicopter, right? And he's a very serious professional pilot. And he's up there and his GPS is going haywire. He's got UAPs flying underneath him. He's got stuff coming out. His altitude is out of whack. And when you're a serious pilot and a serious guy like he is, that's the stuff that you don't need in your world.
Yeah.
You know, you're a helicopter pilot. And I'm always trying to get a read on him. I'm not so sure. No, I think he's bought in now. I think he's buying what everybody's selling, but I don't think he came into this playing that game at all. And it took a minute for him to understand that there's strange stuff going on. But you can't have strange stuff when you're flying at 5,000 feet in a helicopter.
Yeah, whatever. This is great. That is probably the perfect example. I mean, yeah, a lot of third party people have had this happen to them, but yeah, Cameron's kind of the elephant in the room, who is a licensed professional pilot. I mean, he's responsible for the souls on board, right? And if anything goes wacky, he goes into, to your point. So by the way, he's the nicest, coolest guy. But yeah, when it's time to fly, Cameron's got a game face and he keeps everybody safe. There are procedures, there are processes, there are checklists, all of that happens. And, talking about my ass, I was strapped to the helicopter, shooting LiDAR out with my hand. And, so am I grateful that guy's a great stick, a great pilot? You're damn right I am. And that he's I mean, when we were doing that experiment, when we were doing the LiDAR, and Travis and I, and all that weird stuff happened, he's like, he put it down out in the field, out in the grass. He's like, we're landing.
Let's go back and talk about that episode. What was the experiment? What were you trying to achieve?
Well, anomalies above the triangle and in the area of the mesa. And the idea was, look, legally, I can only fly a drone to 400 feet. That's FAA regulation. Well, previous experience with rocketry and whatnot had shown that, and UAPs following the helicopter around it, happened at a much higher altitude than that. So I raised my hand and said, look, I'm a veteran. I was in the Army. I've hung out of helicopters before. Strap me in. I'll be safe. And let's get LiDAR, my portable LiDAR unit, and scan out the door and see if we get any returns. And if we do, that will change history, right? So that was the experiment. And gosh, we weren't in the air. It seemed like 5 minutes to me. And, we're on comms, but I'm hanging out in the rotor wash. It's loud and the wind's blowing and, I'm trying not to kill myself. But Travis lights up in the comms and my ears goes, we're getting something right now, right out the door. And I can't tell you what I said. It was bleeped out of the show and would be bleeped out of here, but I couldn't. It's not possible because I'm looking out the door and I can't see anything. And the laser is getting returns that he's seeing in real time on the tablet. That was nuts. I mean, completely nuts. So, wow. Get on the ground, let's land. You know, my mind is blown. Travis, we're both kind of like, what? We can't explain it, right? And the coolest thing about the show, by the way, forgive the rabbit hole, but it's live. There is no script. Many people have said this before. I am telling you it's the absolute truth. The cameras roll. They don't tell us what to say. They don't tell us what to do. There's an experiment in mind and we go execute. So what you see is what happens. And that one was completely nuts, completely unexpected. And I was like, let's get on the ground. We have to go post process the data. I have to see this. And I was freaking out when we landed. We got back on the helipad, and because Travis is excited. This is the double PhD physicist, you know, and he saw the data and he showed me the tablet. That's nuts. Wow, that shouldn't be there because I can't see any physical thing out there. So he's got me all lathered up, and I can remember there's a picture I put out on social media when we landed. I looked at Brandon and I said, "Can we have a photo? Just in case the world just changed, can we have a photo?" I'm not saying it did, but just in case this leads to something earth-shattering, earth-changing. So we took this photo in front of the helicopter, and it's here. Anyway, that was pretty wild. And
When I saw that happen, now look, I'm okay with the woo-woo, Pete. Okay. All right. I've seen enough woo now and experienced it that I'm okay. I believe in fairies, right? Now, so that being said, look behind me. I'm a pretty grounded person. I'm pretty smart and I'm pretty tough. But I do believe in fairies and I believe in the woo, right? Okay. That being said, when that happened, you know what I thought? It reminded me of the TV series The Dome, right? That there's some force field, and I don't want to go there. It's too crazy. It's too nuts. But to get a laser to bounce off of something that you can't see, that suggests what? A force field, a barrier, something that is covering Skinwalker Ranch, and that would be pretty earth-shattering. I agree. But that's what I thought of, that you were hitting something invisible. Is that what popped into your head?
yeah, I that's why I asked for a photo. It's like, guys, just in case. And then I can remember thinking, and this aired on a previous episode. Caleb's out at night with a green laser, and I wasn't there, but I watched the show, and he shines the laser up into the sky, and the laser bends. But I didn't realize that until after, the LiDAR experiment we did in the helicopter. That's interesting, right? Laser-based device. And what can bend light? To your question, I'll ask it back to you. What in the world can bend light?
The sun.
Gravity. Gravity is the only thing that I'm aware of.
Mass, a lot of mass, a lot of mass. I have military grade. I should even say this on the air. I have some pretty cool lasers, right? Okay. I don't know if they could burn through a bank vault, but probably. And I use them a lot. They've never bent. They've never bent. My strongest lasers, I swear, you could see it on the moon, right? It's like that, right? They're really powerful. But I've never seen them bend. That would freak me out. That's a tough one to explain.
Yeah. But if I'm not making myself entirely clear, LiDAR is laser based.
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes.
if I'm getting returns from something that's out there that no one can physically see, then when I saw Caleb's thing with his green laser he shot into the sky, I'm like, I wonder if that's related. I wonder if the area is related. I mean, we were literally at the triangle, at the mesa, at altitude, and there's something in the sky that we can't see that the laser is getting returns from.
Yeah, that's crazy. So when you land, that's nuts. So
Nuts.
you go to Travis, you look at his data. What did the data tell you? How far out was the invisible force field? I don't know how.
Oh God. I don't remember. Honestly, I don't. Distance, I don't remember from the helicopter. What I do remember is that, of course, we do what we always do, because I'm not the only one who doesn't want to put any BS out there, right?
Right.
Let's get on the ground. Let's look at the data. I mean, and we're really going to have to be serious about this, um, because it's so strange. And anyway, cut to the chase. We got in touch with a vendor who I know well, good friends of mine. I've been working with them for a couple of years. The folks who make the LiDAR unit, and they looked at it and went, and oh, that's ghosting. And I'll tell you what ghosting is. Ghosting is LiDAR hates motion. Anything that moves in front of the scanner will ghost, like a person walking through my scan, car driving through my scan, whatever. It'll ghost because it's a moment in speed of light. The laser gets a return from a thing, then it shoots again, then it shoots again. So you get this ghosting of this thing. And their only explanation was, oh, it's ghosting. It's the rotor blades from the helicopter. It's Pete's big feet out on the skid of the helicopter. And Travis was like, that doesn't work, man. That the geometry's wrong. We would see a rotor blade. We would see Pete's big feet. So it was, oh gosh, I can just remember being so upset because, talking with Brandon and just saying, man, I was hoping, I was hoping, I was,
Did
get
you,
your acceptance speech ready for Stockholm, right?
right, right, right.
But
No,
it was inconclusive at the end of the day.
did you have a chance to go back up in the helicopter and try to repeat it?
In the same place. Yeah, we did more than one flight. We did more than one flight in both areas. So we did where we always go, Triangle, Mesa, and the East Field.
Right.
And by the way, the East Field was nuts because it was like somebody didn't want us there. And I don't know how else to say it. It was like somebody grabbed a helicopter and went, nope, not over there. You stay over here. And, we're all, I think this was live on the episode too. We're all like, whoa. It's like when you jump in turbulence on any flight. But this was like, nope, you can't go there. You're going. And Cameron, cool customer that he is, our pilot, I can remember him in the comms just going, okay, that was weird.
Yeah, you don't want that from your pilot.
No.
No, you don't want that from your pilot.
No.
Did you feel? Did you get the feeling that you were being watched?
Oh. Okay, so this is as far into, what did you use? What was your term? Into the woo woo?
Yeah, woo woo. Let's go full woo. Let's go full woo.
So again, a conversation, offline, just chatting at some point with Brandon. And I actually think Brandon put this idea in my head. But it just, either he said it or I said it. It just felt like the story, the narrative went something like, doesn't it just feel sometimes like there's a couple of blokes somewhere in another dimension pulling the strings and laughing their asses off at us? It's like, watch this. I'm going to make Travis squeal, or or I'm going to make Kelsey freak out and make his LiDAR misbehave, and just somebody just messing with us, right? Like the old ants under a magnifying glass when we were kids, kind of thing. And I can remember that conversation and just thinking, that actually, there's something about that that feels right.
That's got to be a weird feeling, and you know it when it happens. When we've all had that feeling. You're in a crowded room or you're in a public space, and you feel like you're being looked at, and you look, and somebody's looking at you. You can tell, right, when you're being looked at. It's built into our DNA.
Yeah.
And then, but there's the other aspect with Skinwalker that I find a little bit troubling. And apparently so does the Utah State Attorney General, right, who has been watching this stuff too as well. There seems to be aircraft interested in Skinwalker Ranch. Black helicopters, private jets circling. Maybe some of this is drones, not of yours, something else. But somebody else is interested in Skinwalker Ranch, aren't they?
Oh yeah. There's no doubt about that. And two thoughts there. One, there are these, because I have to have an FAA certification to fly my gear. I'm aware of these things called NOTAMs, NOTAMS. It stands for Notice to Airmen. And these NOTAMs, Brandon, Cameron, whenever you want to shoot rockets at the ranch more than a certain altitude, you have to file a NOTAM with the FAA. Okay? There will be rockets from this time at night to this time at night, going to this altitude at this lat long, blah, blah, blah. And those are public. Okay. So, in terms of, I guess this is sort of like a way to forensically really look into one way to investigate who's flying around out there, would be NOTAMs are public. So, anybody who was interested in Skinwalker Ranch, anyone or anything, could set up, send me an email every time there's a NOTAM in and around Vernal, Utah, Roosevelt, Utah, the ranch. And then you'll know that something interesting is going to be going on there, right? And you could be ready with your gear to pay attention, to surveil, to whatever. So that's one thought for a savvy, and that's whether it's, the government or whatever. So yeah, somebody is paying attention. The spooky thing, well, spooky. The thing that worries me as a certified pilot is that they're not transponding on the ADS-B.
Right.
So every commercial aircraft has to transpond where they are in the airspace so they don't hit another aircraft. And this aircraft, especially, in that episode, is not transponding, and that's happened more than once. Who could get away with not transponding on the ADS-B? Well, that's either the DoD or the IC, Department of Defense or the intelligence community. Period. No one else could get away with that. People like me would go to jail. So yeah, is somebody paying attention? Yeah. And even the Utah AG, who's flying in my airspace, that great line he said, no information will be forthcoming. Ooh, okay. Well, it's common knowledge the government has been interested in the property for some time. Sure seems to me like they still are.
Well, there are. We're going to move on from this
Mhm.
subject, but you can go to Flight Tracker, you can go to Flight Aware. There's all kinds of software out there,
Yep.
different websites where you can go and look at all of the air traffic. Period. That includes military stuff. You can watch it. It's all there. Everything. Period. Right. And you turn around and you've got a black helicopter above your property and it's not transponding. And you can tell back in the command center, right? They've got Flight Tracker right there, man. It's on one of the big
Yeah.
screens, like
Yeah.
24/7, right? It's always right there. And to have something not transponding, that's bizarre to me. And who it's not safe to turn off your transponder.
No.
It's not. That means you are not seen by another aircraft, and you could have a midair collision.
Yeah.
You could have a midair collision with your transponders on, right? But you would at least know who you were hitting. You would see. You understand what I'm saying?
Of course. Of
That's
course.
it's when the AG of Utah, who on more than one occasion sees evidence of this, he was angry, and he should be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's he's in control of the laws of his state, right? And that's what he's representing. And something like that, civil aviation, the basics of the basics being violated like that, to turn off a transponder willy-nilly. No, you can't do that, and it's illegal. So who would be doing it, and why over Skinwalker?
Yeah.
Um,
When there's a NOTAM in place saying we're going to be launching rockets. Who in their right mind would fly into that airspace when there's rockets flying around?
it, I call them fireworks, but you can call them rockets if you want. That's that's the. I crack a lot of jokes about that, but it's so funny when they what's the word that they mortars, right? Like, dude, it's fireworks. Just call it fireworks. It looks like they're having a lot of fun out there. But now here's where I kind of want to wrap up. The indigenous uh,
Mm.
population, not only in that part of Utah, but across the country, has their uh, history.
Yep.
When you get into the spiritual side of their history, I find it very, very, very interesting. They don't, not all, but they don't have issues with contact. They don't. They don't. And when it comes to Skinwalker and the reason why it's called Skinwalker to begin with, now we are going full right now, and what a Skinwalker is. And I've talked to people that live in the area that have seen some strange things. I didn't want to get into that tonight, but that's the history of Skinwalker, right? And it appears that this has been going on for a very, very long time.
Yep.
Right now, scientifically, we're looking into this, but this is not anything strange to the people and the culture of that basin in Utah, is it?
Yeah. No, and it's a great point, and it's I too find that really compelling and something that should be taken very seriously, and it is. I mean, I don't mean to suggest that it's not being. It absolutely is. And to pay really close attention to that historical narrative that has been around for millennia. And what's really interesting is there's more than a few petroglyphs. I mean, physical evidence of that presence. I mean, these folks have been here a whole lot longer than the rest of us have, and so no one knows the real estate better. No one knows the stories better. No one knows the narrative better, et cetera, et cetera. And in terms of the physical evidence, some of the petroglyphs are really something. I mean, it was my privilege to, I got to bring a terrestrial laser scanner up to one of them. I think it was last winter. It was off season. Just by the way, the research goes all the time. It is not dependent on the television series at all. So I went up. I was helping to document this series of petroglyphs, and they were just spectacular, right? And in just the right place, right? I mean, however old they are, somebody clearly had something to say. And just like I describe them as sort of the billboards of the day, right? Location, location, location. You want the perfect rock that's, at elevation, that the sun hits just right, so that anybody coming by is going to go, wow, what is that? Somebody has something to say. And beyond that, it's just purely speculative to me. But what was fun for me, having done petroglyphs before, is the laser can really exaggerate the depth, the third dimension, to really bring out what you can't physically see when you're there on site.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that stuff is just spectacular. And to be able to go to the local folks, the youth in this case, and say, "Tell us what this means. What do you know about this?"
And
I'm not.
what do they say? I went to one of the largest petroglyph sites in this hemisphere, right in North America. It's on the California Arizona border, right? So I go, and there's I think there's 750 petroglyphs in this little section of this. It's insane to see. Now, but here's the trippy thing. The Mojave Indians, this is called the Mojave Desert because of the Mojave Indians, right? The Mojave Indians that have been here for about 2,000 years say, we didn't do those. We don't know who did those petroglyphs, right?
I love that.
Right. So, but here's the crazy thing, Pete. I can't read, right? I'm especially not that kind of linguist. I only speak 80s Sunset Boulevard. I can speak metal speak. I can do that really well. But but when you're standing in these petroglyphs like you, and this is the question, you can tell that there is a story.
Oh yeah.
Right? You can see it. There is a complete story here. I just don't know what it is. I don't know if it's an origin story. There's some crazy things that look like this, and I see mitochondria. I see DNA.
Yeah.
I see a spaceman. I see this weird. Everything's moving in a direction. You can kind of you can see, but you just don't know what it says. And the Mojave don't have any answers for this particular site. For you, looking at these petroglyphs, could you tell that there was a story there, that it was that, you know what I mean? It's there, it's in front of you, but you just don't know what it is.
Yes. There's a story. I don't know what it is, but to see, figures, I mean, clearly human-like, humanoid, legs, hands, but hands with 6 fingers.
Yeah. I
That
saw
was cool. Headdresses and, exaggerated features. I'm with you. I don't speak ancient Ute in this case, and would desperately love to have, the right folks interpret that in some way. Because that's a story I would love to hear, right? Because again of the proximity, because it's Skinwalker Ranch, and this art that somebody spent a lot of time and effort creating is there. And the historical narrative being what it is, how is there a link between the historical narrative and what you see on the petroglyphs?
Yeah,
There must be.
and the amount of effort, right? When you need to worry about eating, surviving, and keeping your family alive overnight, right? That's all you. That was life, right?
Yeah.
That's and to take time out where you're going to carve this and preserve what you have seen, right? Obviously, you've seen something, and it was that important, right? And your wife is going, are you going to go and kill a gazelle today, or are you going to continue carving this stuff on the cave wall?
Right.
And it was that important. There was this one petroglyph. Now, so we're in this cave, right? We're in this cave, and the cave, it was narrow, like a hallway, but it went up like 30 feet, this crevice to the roof of the cave. On the side, up at the top, right? Up at the top, probably 30 feet above my head. And it was pretty big. I'm going to say 3 feet wide, maybe 3 feet tall, in the middle of the desert. Okay, this is what it was. It was on the bottom was water. You could see the waves, right? And then there was a straight line underneath that, but there was water. Above that, standing on the water, is a stick dude, right? 2 legs, torso, round head, with his arms out like this with fingers, right? In each hand holding out above this one was a cross floating above his hand. And this hand over here, a round ball standing above the water. What is that? Right? So what did he see? What is it in the middle of the desert, right? That's obviously like an ocean or a lake. But what does that represent? I don't know.
And who's the audience, right?
And
if you go to your point, you go to all that effort, risk life and limb, because you're not going to have to rig scaffolding and God knows what to get up there.
Right. 3,000 years ago. Yeah. I looked at that. I took pictures. I shot video. And some of the petroglyphs, I mean, really interesting to look at. It doesn't matter if it's herds of animals or stick figures, spirals, solar systems, whatever you want to say it is. It's fun to look at. But that thing up, I just went, what is that saying? And I can only describe it to you like a cross, a plus sign, not a biblical cross, like a plus sign in this hand. And it was big, right? The plus sign. And then the other hand was a round ball, and he's holding it. He's like this. I was like, man, I wish I knew. He's trying to tell us something.
Yeah.
This
cat had something to say.
Now, what about much has been said, back to the woo before we get out of here. Skinwalkers, ghosts, red eyes, dogs without legs, entities floating around. Did you see anything or hear any strange stories when you were at the ranch?
Oh my gosh, lots of stories. But the first thing I think of, and there's a photo out on social media that I took. I was out by myself a couple of years ago, flying, just doing mapping, doing what I do, and it had rained, and the mud is epic out by the triangle and at the foot of the mesa. And I have my truck. I get set up. I do a flight, And I come back to my truck, and there are tracks in the mud that, again, I near soiled myself because I was out there by myself. And the track, I mean, you don't get a sense of scale here, but it was clearly canine, a big, big dog or wolf. And I'm not making this up. This track was like 6, 7 inches across and went right by my truck and was clearly sort of poking around while I had my back to it with flying the drone up in the air. I freaked. I'm done for the day. We're done. And I I told this story to Chris Bartell, former security guy under the Bigelow, and he's like, where were you? And I'm like, right at the intersection of the road where it goes left down to the triangle. And he goes, he starts rifling through, all the photos on his phone, and he shows me tracks in the exact same, I mean, within 20 feet, 10 years before. And he's like, my dog's alerted, and there was something, down in the canal that was huge and pissed off and growling. Just like, Chris, I just came back. Anyway, I've been going when I'm out there alone, I'm packing heat since that day.
Now, okay. Here's your opportunity. What do you think? Have you come to a conclusion? What could it have been? Because this sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want your opinion. But now you've got a combination of the physical and the paranormal, right? You have to have the physical side, right? The impressions have to be made, but then it's the paranormal. It was a portal. It was a portal. Sasquatch stepped through the portal with a wolf. So what do you do? What conclusions can you come to?
Yeah. How come I didn't see it? How come I didn't hear it? Because this thing was walked behind me. Yeah, I couldn't have been 20 yards away. I mean, I didn't smell it. I had no idea, and it scared the bejesus out of me. And this is crazy too. I went back to the command center, kind of freaking out, going, big bear, and or something, right?
Right.
And Caleb being Caleb, he's like, I'm going out there. Okay, and he put a track on the thing, and he tracked it. I can't remember where he followed it, but he tracked the tracks. He followed the evidence way back into the scrub that's to the south, and then he lost him. But I just kept saying, Taylor, did you see how big those tracks were? And he's like, yeah, it's big.
Everybody's armed, right? I remember the first time I saw Skinwalker, episode 1, season 1. I'm like, man, what's with the guns? No, right. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, when you see tracks like that, and I have to be out there by myself, and Bryant, aka Dragon, great guy that he is, he's like, Pete, you don't have to go out there by yourself at all. Just let me know, and I'll go with you, because it's his gig. He's a security guy. He and Caleb, and why the guns? I've seen the tracks, and if you want to see the tracks that I saw, they're up on Twitter and been reposted a lot since I put them up there. I mean, they're right next to my size 13 foot. I mean, big.
Man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier that the research is ongoing, right? It's not dependent on the production crew, and it's only going on when you need to film episodes. It's going on all year long.
Yep.
Are you in contact? This is leading up to my question. Are you in contact with everybody at the ranch, like all the time?
I won't say constantly, but I mean they become friends of mine. We chat now and then. Let's see. I of course I can't say what's going on, but things have been very busy there.
Okay,
Even
well,
this,
you can answer this. You can answer this question. You can answer. Don't worry. I'll deal with Brandon and the NDA. Okay, I'll take care of that for you. The boulders, are they moving them now? 2 episodes ago, 3 episodes ago, maybe 4 episodes ago, they bring in that huge crane, right?
Yep.
Moving
Yep.
those boulders that weigh 50 tons each, whatever, they're crazy. They're big, they're huge. Nothing. It's been crickets ever since. So my question is, are they moving those boulders? Yes or no? You can
I
answer. Don't worry
I
about
can't.
Don't worry
I
about Brandon.
I can't. I
What's
can't. I mean, yes, I have an NDA, but as I just said, these are friends of mine. I mean, we've earned each other's trust, and I just can't. I can't. I won't.
so they are. Do you have any idea? do you, what's under the boulders? What are they going to find? And okay, one last question. I thank you for answering that, Brandon. Don't worry about it. It's okay. We know you're moving the boulders. The red stuff in the cave. What's going on?
That's interesting. I don't know what it is. I don't have the 411 on that either. But when I saw that, interesting. We need a geologist to tell us what that is because I don't recognize it.
It's shiny. That's the crazy part about it. If it's no, I'm saying this wrong. If it's natural, it's old.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been there for a while, but
Yeah.
it also looks moist. It looks like glossy paint that was poured down a rock wall. In nature, when does that happen? So what is that? And my first, where's Thomas when we need him? Let's get down there and do a biopsy, right? Let's get down there and claw that stuff off of the wall, and let's get a sample of it and test it. I find that fascinating too as well. Look, it's the LiDAR, it's the GPR, it's the dome, it's the 1.6, it's everything that's going on there. And then it's the other stuff to me that is equally as fascinating.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. There's a lot of nuance. So you're right. Well, wait a minute. You guys moved some huge rocks, and then it moved on to something else. And there's that red stuff inside the mesa that got filmed. What's that? And all I can say about that, and I'm not on the inside. This is just my best guess. Is it's that never-ending tug of war between the television show and the ongoing research, and it's how do you fit all this into a shooting schedule? I'm sympathetic to that. Okay, that's why the research goes on all the time. Because as you might guess, when you don't have 5 cameras in your face and a huge crew and all of that going on, a whole lot more work gets done off season than
Right.
on.
Right. Yeah. I want to go up there. I want to go up and just hang out for a couple of days and check it out myself. The UAP aspect of it. Oh, you know what? Okay, we're now 60 seconds over. So I'm just going to end it with this. The UAPs that you observed and what we're seeing in the show, are they directly above, or are we seeing stuff that is miles and miles away? you know, it like the UAP that you saw, the first
Mhm.
one, right? The
Mhm.
daytime one. Was that
Mhm.
directly above Skinwalker?
Yes.
Wow, really?
I was basically on the driveway, the entrance road,
Right.
looking due west towards, past the, um, God, why do I lose the word? The ranch itself, the main building, towards the mesa and the triangle. And this thing was in the sky at altitude, directly over what I would call the mesa, the triangle.
Wow, incredible, incredible. Pete Kelsey, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And here's the thing, we've got a mutual close friend, and now I can get all the mud on Pete Kelsey that I
Oh, God.
and yeah, exactly. But it's a two-way street. Hey, Pete, thank you for everything. It was a great conversation tonight. I look forward to the next time that you're on the show. Good luck up there, and just keep the discoveries coming, my friend. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's been a pleasure. A lot of fun.
All the best. Right
Cheers,
there.
man.
Pete Kelsey, and something strange is going on up there. And now, no episode tonight. So Christina and I will not be doing a review tomorrow that we do normally every single week, but we will be picking up on the latest episode next Wednesday. What am I doing tomorrow night on the show? Tomorrow night, we have got, oh, that's right. Tomorrow night, we've got Rob Shelsky here tomorrow night. And we're going to be doing ancient megalithic structures and a whole lot more tomorrow night with Rob Shelsky. I want to thank everybody for hanging out tonight. What a great conversation. Thank you, Pete. Perfect show for me tonight. Absolutely perfect. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Till tomorrow night with Rob Shelsky. I want everybody to be safe. Go Backley Tappy.